The non-belief is incoherent omnibus. Number 10. The argument from Hitchens' razor. Premise 1. That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. This is Hitchens' razor. If it is not taken as axiomatic, then one is faced with either accepting all assertions, whether supported by evidence or not, or with committing special pleading fallacies by dismissing some assertions because of insufficient evidence, while accepting other assertions despite insufficient evidence. Premise 2. The existence of a distinct state of non-belief, not believing P and not believing not P, one's condition of being in such a state, and the capacity to be consciously aware of the content of one's subconscious mind, by which to rule out the presence of a subconscious belief, are all asserted without evidence. While arguments, analogies, and assertions have been offered for an absence of belief as distinct from belief in the negation, being in that state, and the capacity to be aware of the content of the subconscious, no empirical evidence has been presented for these. The argument that one is the expert of their own mind is actually a psychologist's fallacy. The claim that one can be consciously aware of the content of the subconscious is an extraordinary claim that requires extraordinary evidence. Conclusion. Therefore, the existence of a distinct state of non-belief, one's condition of being in such a state, and the capacity to be consciously aware of the content of one's subconscious mind, by which to rule out the presence of a subconscious belief, can all be dismissed without evidence. The onus lies with those who make these assertions to actually support them with evidence. The rejections of these assertions does not constitute a counterclaim, as one can hold the epistemological position of agnosticism with regard to these assertions, while also holding the doxastic position that they are untrue. No burden of proof is incurred by the doxastic position of, I believe those assertions are untrue. A belief statement does not equate to a knowledge claim, and the burden of proof applies strictly to knowledge claims. The rejection of these assertions does not substantiate non-belief. The doxastic position suggested here is, I believe these assertions are untrue, not, I lack belief that these assertions are true, as the latter is rejected as intrinsically incoherent.
The author argues that the concepts of non-belief, self-awareness of one's mental state, and the absence of subconscious belief lack evidence and can therefore be dismissed. His argument relies heavily on Hitchens' razor and a misapplication of the psychologist's fallacy. However, his reasoning is flawed. Non-belief is not an assertion. Subconscious beliefs can be accessed through established psychological methods, and claiming to be the expert of one's own mind is not fallacious. This refutation will demonstrate why his argument is both unsound and unsubstantiated. Let's look at the first premise, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. While this is a useful heuristic, there is no need to take it as an axiom. What the quote is expressing is that rational thinkers have the ability to dismiss claims that have no strong motivation for their acceptance. If a claim is made, you are under no obligation to accept unless it is accompanied by justification in either strong argument or evidence. If, for whatever reason, you consider a claim potentially true, you are then under the obligation to gather or generate that evidence for that claim. There is no inherent obligation, just the acknowledgement that claims that have no weight are easily dropped. In the case of non-belief, well, non-belief is not an assertion. It is not saying that any particular claim is or is not true. It is simply practicing the ability of rational thinkers to not accept a claim without strong motivation. For example, one might not claim that the number of gumballs is even, but they may just lack a belief that the number of gumballs is even. The argument that without the razor, one must either accept all assertions or commit a special pleading fallacy is a false dichotomy. Rejecting some claims without evidence doesn't mean we must accept all other claims, especially contradictory ones. For example, rejecting the claim the number of gumballs is even doesn't force us to accept the contradictory claim the number of gumballs is odd. Premise 2. The existence of a distinct state of non-belief, b. one's condition of being in such a state, and c. the capacity to be consciously aware of the content of one's subconscious mind in order to rule out the presence of subconscious belief, are all asserted without evidence. Cognitive science and psychology studies distinguish between the absence of belief and belief in the negation. Non-belief is empirically documented in research, and there is no requirement for the absence of belief to be treated as an assertion needing evidence. People can engage in self-reflection, and tools like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, show that individuals can be made aware of their subconscious beliefs. This isn't an extraordinary claim, but a recognized part of human psychology. To continue further, Therapeutic methods like CBT, mindfulness, and psychoanalysis are grounded in empirical research and focus on helping individuals identify subconscious beliefs. Self-awareness practices are well known in psychology. Diving just a bit further into the discussion. CBT is a widely recognized method that helps individuals identify and modify subconscious beliefs. Developed by Aaron Beck, CBT involves techniques such as cognitive restructuring to address automatic thoughts and core beliefs. Beck's work demonstrates that individuals can become aware of and change their subconscious thought patterns, leading to improved mental health outcomes. Cognitive restructuring, CR, is a psychotherapeutic process of learning to identify and dispute irrational or maladaptive thoughts known as cognitive distortions, which are commonly associated with many mental health disorders. Cognitive restructuring involves 4 steps. 1. Identification of problematic cognitions known as automatic thoughts, ATS, which are dysfunctional or negative views of the self, world, or future based upon already existing beliefs about oneself, the world, or the future. 2. Identification of the cognitive distortions in the automatic thoughts. 3. Rational disputation of automatic thoughts with the Socratic method. 4. Development of a rational rebuttal to the automatic thoughts. All of this contradicts the author's assertion that such claims are extraordinary or unsubstantiated. The author will often preemptively accuse others of engaging in some fallacy or another, and it is often the better course to ignore since these accusations have no weight to them. But as an example, let's look at the psychologist's fallacy and see how it applies. This is the fallacy of projecting one's own subjective experience onto others, especially in interpreting or analyzing another person's thoughts, beliefs, or feelings. The phrase "one is the expert of one's own mind" could be understood that people are in the best position to recognize their own beliefs or lack thereof, since they have the most direct experience with their own thoughts. The reason the fallacy doesn't apply is because when someone claims to be the expert of their own mind, they are only referring to their personal, subjective awareness of their thoughts and beliefs. They are not assuming that others share the same level of understanding or awareness of their mental state. Rather, they are acknowledging that individuals have unique access to their own thoughts and beliefs. Conclusion: the existence of A, B, C can be dismissed without evidence. Fortunately, there is no need to dismiss these things without evidence, since there is a substantial amount of evidence to support these positions. Disregarding that evidence and not engaging with it in a meaningful way doesn't invalidate it. In examining the author's argument, it becomes evident that his premises rest on misunderstandings of both cognitive science and logic. His framing of nonbelief as an assertion is incorrect, as nonbelief represents the absence of belief, not a positive claim. Furthermore, his dismissal of one's ability to access subconscious beliefs contradicts well-documented psychological practices such as cognitive behavioral therapy. Lastly, his appeal to the psychologist's fallacy is misplaced, as claiming to be the expert of one's own mind does not require assuming universal mental experiences. In light of these clarifications, it is clear that the author's argument lacks both empirical and logical support and can thus be confidently rejected.